Your mic, okay.
Oh,
good.
no.
I don't have to walk up when everyone's watching.
It's time to keep learning. Oh, my voice sounds so good. Oh, that worked. It's my beautiful singing voice. Hello, hello, hello. Ooh, crap. Hold on. Just kidding. I got to record myself. I'm so cute. There we go. Okay. I know Jordan's recording, but you know. Wow, you guys are such good students. Look at you back in your seats. How was lunch? Delicious. I love me a good lunch that's not so heavy I want to pass out. Okay, so now that you've seen all the spaces, I want to do a quick shout out to a few more of our sponsors. BBJ La Tavola provided the high top linens in the back and in the pre-function space. Don't they have the prettiest things? And our main decor sponsor for the day, my new best friends, Chris and John from Posy Exchange. They're responsible for this. I definitely just want to hide behind these and take a picture. Right? It is the walls, the furniture, making it all look so good for us to look great as a panel all the way through. And thank you for everybody and all the sponsors and your dedication. Like I said earlier, we cannot do this without people like that. So I am going to turn from MC to panelist now. Now you got to learn some stuff from me. I'm doing good, right? Today, our moderator is Anna Coates. Anna's the owner and editor. I mean, she does not need an introduction, but whatever. I'll do it anyways. Anna is the owner of Marry Me Tampa Bay. Who's a Marry Me Tampa Bay member? Who after today is going to be like, I should learn about becoming a Marry Me Tampa Bay member? Okay, awesome. She has been in the industry for such an amazing long time. She also owns a marketing firm called Married to Marketing with nearly 20 years of marketing experience. Ooh, leading a marketing team for Fortune 500 company. Fancy pantsy. Anna does blogging, social media, and online marketing for the wedding and event industry specifically. There are not many people in this industry, guys, that I call when I am stuck and need help, and Anna is one of those. So I'm going to turn it over to her. Welcome us, the panel.
So I have got to say that I have been so excited for this panel, not because I'm leading it, because I am so excited to hear what they are going to say. We did kind of a run through a little bit earlier. I'm like, oh my gosh, I am learning so much, so I know that you guys are going to get a ton out of this. If you haven't learned, Shannon kind of tells it how it is. So she will be really down and dirty of giving you that sales stuff that you need to hear and need to be reminded of. And then Shauna has a really great mindset about receiving money in our lives, and that's always so important to do when you're doing sales. So we're going to tackle some of that this afternoon. If you guys didn't fill out the survey link, so we wanted to put this up there because something that has been really important right now is, what is the state of the industry when it comes to weddings? So for those of you who did fill out that pre-survey link, I'm going to go over some of the results with you in real time. So just a couple of questions. The questions were, I would describe my 2024 revenue as higher than 2023, lower than 2023, about the same. 67% of people said that they would describe their revenue as higher than 2023, and 17% said lower than 2023, and 15% about the same. So almost 70% said higher, so that's amazing. I would estimate my 2025 revenue to be 80% said higher than 2024, 5% said lower than 2024, and 15% said about the same. And last question, my confidence in the wedding market for 2025 as it pertains to meeting my revenue goals. Very confident was 32%, confident 57%, 10% somewhat concerned. No one said concerned or very concerned. So that kind of gives you an idea of what people in this room think right now. And we're going to address some of that stuff as we get into the presentation. So I want to introduce you guys to someone who needs no introduction. But Shannon, we all know you as having a great personality, lots of fun, really well respected in the industry, but give us a little bit of background as it pertains to sales and how you know a lot of stuff about sales.
Yeah, I mean, connecting with people for me is easy, but and I started my career in catering, it was easy for me to meet with people and get the leads and sit down and do these epic meetings, and they were great, and then they never booked us as a catering company. Does anybody ever feel that? You're like, I don't understand, they love me, and they didn't book. So at the time, which was 15 years ago now, I went for very advanced sales training and spent 2 years, 6 hours per week in advanced aggressive sales training, and it turned me into a beast. Taught me a system of how you can do repetitive behaviors over and over and over again, and once you kind of rinse, wash, repeat, asking for the sale in different ways. So sales is my jam. Like, I can help you market all day, but helping you close that sale, the thrill of that kill just makes me happy. So I love sales.
And Shauna, if you want to give us a little bit of insight into your background.
Yeah, so I actually come from a background of being a former teacher and assistant principal. My husband and I are wedding photographers, destination-based wedding photographers. We live here, but we work everywhere else. And our background as educators really has a huge basis of how we serve through sales. And I'm going to talk a lot about serving through sales and how sales doesn't have to be scary. It's actually a really great way to take good care of your clients. And so I think just the way that we're able to connect with our clients and relate to them has been a really great way for us to kind of sell. Back when I was in college, I worked for a clothing store, and that retailer actually taught me a lot about ideal client profiles, which is really ironic. It was Old Navy. And I really applied that to our business. And when we first launched our business, in 3 months, we had a fully booked wedding season as teachers. And so that was kind of like the pivot point for us. So it's just something that kind of always came easily to us. And so we had other photographers who would start asking us, like, how are you booked? How are you booking your ideal clients? And so it really became something that I identified as a need that I didn't know because it came really naturally to us. And so from there, we kind of shifted into not just photography, but photography education. So
awesome, very cool. So we've kind of addressed it a little bit earlier today, but what do you feel like is the state of the current wedding industry? I know that you work with so many vendors from all across Central Florida, and I know that you work with people all over the U.S. So what are you hearing in terms of how things are going in the wedding industry?
Hot topic, not based upon the statistics of people in this room, but the conversations we're having pretty consistently, not only in Central Florida, but with the venues we work with across the country, is there's really no middle ground right now. Everybody's either like, next year looks great, or they're like crying on my shoulder at a networking event. And so it's okay if you fibbed a little bit on the survey, nobody's tracking you. But at the end of the day, there's no in between, right? People are kind of like, everything looks great, I'm doing good, or they're kind of like nervous in the corner, like, I don't know, I don't really have a lot of leads. It's not closing. They're making decisions shorter time frame. And so we're living in this weird moment in another massive shift. The customers are shifting, the sales cycle is shifting. And so trying to figure out and look further ahead, we were literally talking about this at lunch. If you're a venue, the choices you make today affect you 18 months from now. So if you are down right now, it is the choices you made in 2022 and 2023 that are leading to some of those things. So I think it's kind of trying to figure out where you're at and what are the shifts you need to make to kind of get on board with where we're going as an industry.
Yeah, and I'd love to add on to that. So we know that there was a boom in 2022, and I was actually just talking with a great friend of mine, Moses Lynn. He's a musician based out of California, and we both are having the best years of our lives this year. And what we both had kind of on our own come to conclusion of is what you doubled down on in 2020, 2021, 2022 is really coming to fruition right now because of the 18-month rule. 18 to 24 months, what you do today will come to life. And so if you're not seeing the lead sources or the qualified leads, or you're just not where you want to be, or even if you are, I would highly suggest reflecting back to what you've doubled down on in the last 18 months, because it's either serving you or not. And you need to pivot that today in order to see those changes in the next 18 months. So if you start, being more present on social media, Malik's going to be talking about that. You need to go with it. You're not going to see those results necessarily immediately. You need to figure out what it is you want to double down on and do that. And I really fully agree, even within photography, planners that we've spoken to, videographers, they are either really low this year or they are just booming. And I think it's because some people might have gotten a little used to leads coming in really easily in 2022, and maybe we weren't as doing all of the marketing that we know we need to be doing.
You know, it makes sense that based on this survey, people are doing so well because you are the guys who are coming out and networking and building the relationships and putting the time in. I talked to a vendor just a couple of days ago and she was like, I don't know what's going on with this summer. Like things, I'm so worried about the industry. I'm like, oh, well, are you coming on Tuesday? No, I'm not coming on Tuesday. And you know, those are the people I feel like that really need to put that extra work in. So, this is an election year. We always kind of say, oh, election years make the wedding industry weird. So how does the economy really affect the wedding industry?
Hot topic. Spicy. This is spicy. It's all bullshit. People, oh, damn it. You get a free hour of coaching because I just cursed again. It is all BS. It is about people will spend money on the things they want to spend money on. My business is growing, which is great, but I just spent $16,000 on a retaining wall and a patio. $16,000. Did I want to spend that? No. It's a choice, right? So I think they're being smarter with their money. They're being more choosy with how they spend it. But I do 25 wedding shows a year. 25 shows a year. All I do is talk to couples planning their wedding. They will look for the cheapest venue and then book a $5,000 photographer. So it's about a choice in today's world. Things like the election, things like it affects the corporate side of things 100%. But on the social side, in 2008, the catering company I worked for, when the market crashed, we did more weddings than we had ever done. So weddings and social is not as affected by economic changes the way that other areas of the industry are. But so don't use that as an excuse. It's the worst to listen to you and be like, oh, well, it's an election year. I'm like, or your marketing sucks. Whatever.
For me, at where we are, I could see like certain ideal clients maybe it affecting, but I think that you would really have to dig deep into like who are you serving, what are their patterns, what are their core values. I still think that if people are going to get married, they're going to get married and they're going to spend the same. Especially if so from my perspective, I'm serving high net worth clients. They have the money. If their child is getting married or they're getting married, they're going to invest in what they think is worth investing in. Perhaps your value benefits aren't aligning, and like then that would be the problem more than anything.
And I think you definitely touched on it earlier, is we haven't had to work as hard for weddings in the past. Now you have to work a little bit harder. So all those things that you're like, oh yeah, I really haven't spent a lot of time doing that particular marketing thing. You have to do it now. You have to work just a little bit harder to make sure that you're still keeping all those plates in the air when it comes to increasing sales and getting people come to you. So perfect. All right, speaking of marketing, what role does marketing play in the sales funnel?
The biggest one possible, right? If you are not filling your funnel with the ideal client and with the people you want to be working with in different ways, in 2024, marketing is a layered approach. It is not the direct funnel that it used to be. You used to be able to just, someone Googled the keywords, landed on your website, looked through your pretty things, and filled out the form. Not anymore. They look through your pretty things, then they go to your Instagram because they're like, well, this is probably more. And then they're like, oh, I wonder if she's on TikTok. And then they go down the rabbit hole of watching their makeup influencer. And 3 weeks later, they remember you exist. So if you are not using layered marketing approaches, you don't have to be in all the places, but you have to successfully be in many places, right? You have to be networking. You have to come up on Google. Your Instagram can't look like nobody's posted anything, once every 3 months. So if you're not layering that marketing approach with different things, they're looking at you in many different places. It isn't direct down the funnel anymore, right? So if you are not doing that, sales is a game of numbers. You have to have more leads to move them through the funnel because they disappear and come back 7 months later and 3 years later with venue stuff sometimes. So you have to be moving them through. So thinking, what's the approach? What are the ways they're going for me to be able to get them to make the sale?
Yeah, and from our perspective, marketing to us would be our Instagram presence, our website, the images that we're showing, the words that we're using to attract not only our ideal clients, but when I talk about marketing and networking, it's with creative partners. How am I speaking to the creative team that's going to potentially be working with us? We as photographers who almost all of our bookings come from planner sources or other industry professionals referring us. And so I have to make sure that I'm being able to have like dual marketing going on, where I'm speaking to my creative team, but also speaking to the client and her mom, because they're often who we're talking with in the process. So I think that marketing is probably the most important part of the sales funnel, because what you put out, you attract. And for example, over the last 5 years or so, we've really shifted from like what you would expect of wedding photography into really more authentic, emotive imagery. And so you're not going to see traditional portraits as much on our Instagram or in our portfolio, because that's not the client that we want to serve. I want to serve a client who's okay with maybe not everything being perfectly posed and something that makes them feel something. So I would really recommend looking at what you're putting out there and fine-tooth combing going through and making sure that you're not attracting the wrong people. Of course, we all have to like feed our children or our dogs, and so not every single wedding is the perfect ideal client, and that's okay. But as long as you're putting out there what you actually want to attract, otherwise you're going to get unsuccessful leads coming in, and then you're not going to end up connecting with them or serving them on the sales call.
Yeah, 100%. And when it comes to marketing too, I feel like it's also important not only to put your ideal client out there on social media, but with networking too. Whenever you're trying to connect with planners, venues, photographers, whatever vendor category it is, let them know what's going to be the best type of client. So whenever they have that client and you say, hey, I work really well with XYZ type of couples, they already know to send them to you versus, oh, wow, Shauna's great. She takes pretty pictures. She's really nice. But if they know, oh, Shauna really likes to work with these couples, they already have that immediate connection and can set that up for you.
Yeah, and I'd love to add on to that. Oftentimes we'll be connecting with a planner and we'll be having a Zoom call, and I will ask them on the call, like, who is your ideal client? And we'll have that conversation of who's mine as well. And sometimes it doesn't align, and that's great. Now I have a new friend who I might never work with, and that's okay. It's really important that you come at things from an authentic place and understand that not everyone, just like not every client's a great fit, not every creative partner is a great fit as well, but it's not like a lost cause. You can still be friends with them. If you're coming at it from that other perspective, then you probably aren't going to be very successful.
And we have some presentations coming up on social media, which I highly recommend you go to, because social media, you always hear about it being important, but it is so freaking important. Any vendor that I meet for the first time, the first thing I do is go to their social media account, and within 10 seconds, I'm like, yep or nope. So really make sure that you're updating that. I know that you work with a lot of vendors too. What are some things you look for when it comes to social media of making an impression about someone from a vendor to vendor category?
Yeah, I think giving statistics from the couples first, at my 25 wedding shows so far this year, we have tallied, and every single person we recommend a venue to, we say look it up, and then we're looking to see how they look it up. So under the age of 31, 87% of them go to Instagram. That's where they look it up. And then if they're over 35, we had about 88% go to Google and search Google. In between, it was 50-50. So if you are targeting couples under the age of 31, they are looking at your Instagram first. And so I think that there's such a brutality of hearing that. It hurts a little, because that's how they're judging you, but I think the industry is 100 times worse. We are brutal, because if you are a vendor, these hot little chippies in this room under the age of 35 coming up, they don't look at your website ever. They only look at your social media, and they're like, I would never refer my clients to that vendor who doesn't post anything, doesn't really speak their brand on there. And so I really think we're more brutal than the clients are.
Sure. If you can put the slides up, I do want to share a quick QR code that Shannon's put together for us. So let me get there. She's created a sales tracking worksheet download. Let's talk a little bit about what you have on this download.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge with sales when I'm working with small businesses within our industry is you little sons of a guns don't track your metrics. You don't track the things. And you might have a CRM that does things great. Some of them do. Not all of them do it very well. So we've developed a spreadsheet it's a Google sheet. If you're like, oh, I can't figure this out, just email me afterwards and I'll send it to you. But it is a metrics tracking worksheet. So there's a few different tabs on there. The most important one, I think, though, is the first one, because the metrics I think that every person should be tracking from a sales standpoint is, all your percentages and your ratios, meaning how many leads did I get in, how many of those leads converted to an appointment, and how many of those appointments converted to a contract, right? You have to know what your metrics are because that's the only way you can figure out what's broken. Meaning, do you not have enough leads in the funnel? Are you getting enough leads, but the leads aren't booking appointments? Are you getting bad leads, not your ideal client, things like that? Or are they doing the appointment and they're not converting? Because you can't fix it if you don't know where you're broken. There's a few other tabs on there of just all the sexy things we like to track. I could put 40 tabs on that thing. But it's just a way for you, if as a small business right now, you're like, I don't really track anything, this spreadsheet is a way for you to be like, I've got to start keeping numbers because you can't fix it if you don't know what's broken.
And I like to add I know that I'm in a unique spot since most of our leads do come from creative partners, but I highly recommend, so like if you do have a CRM that tracks your leads, most of my leads come through like a text message. Are you available November 16th? And so I really would encourage you to like send yourself an email. Kelly McWilliams sent me an email asking if I'm available November 16th. So then I can go back when I'm in front of my computer and add that into my sheet. I track, and I have separate tracking. My CRM does the leads that come in through just client referral, but sometimes it'll be a client who comes from a planner and then whatever. Sometimes planners fill out our contact form. That's always interesting when that happens. But I will always pull that back over to my creative spreadsheet. And I can tell you exactly how many times each creative partner refers us. There's a little bar graph that I have, and it's like I can see who's high, who's low. And the reason why it's so helpful in knowing that is not so I know like, oh, this planner loves me. It's because I can be like, oh, I met this planner at this place, and that was a really good relationship. Or sometimes I'm surprised, like, oh, this planner's referred me a ton of times, but we have nothing on the calendar. Like maybe if another lead comes in and it's a little bit lower, I can work with them because they've been really trying to work with me. Or maybe it's someone who's working with me all the time, and they come to me with a big ask of like, hey, we have a wedding. It's literally half of what your rate usually is. Would you be willing to work with us on this one? And I'm like, absolutely, I love you. We work together all the time. You are a wonderful business partner and friend. Yes, it allows for you to make educated decisions on where you feel like you can use kind of some dynamic pricing, which we'll talk about in a little bit too.
Yeah, for sure. And something too that you hear a lot of, oh, a lot of you track where did you find us? That's not going to be necessarily, if you're just asking that on a spreadsheet and not talking to your clients at all, your potential clients, you need to start doing that because as Shannon said, it's not just I find you here, I do this, it's I find you all these places and then they're going down those paths. So I always recommend instead of saying, how did you find us, just changing that to how did you research us? Because someone may find you some way, but then it's that Instagram post they saw or that recommendation from someone else. That's not how they found you, but that's how they researched you.
Wait, that's sexy. Every single person in this room better write that down. On your contact forms, on your website, you are going to change it from how did you find us to how did you research us. And then one past it, instead of a drop down, make it check boxes. Put all the places you market and let them check box all of them. Will it blow into your CRM? No. Who gives a crap? I need good data because you need to know if they saw you on Google, on Marry Me Tampa Bay, on Wedding Venue Map, on Instagram, because you're like, where am I putting my time? If no one ever says TikTok, maybe you should stop putting a ton of time there, right? So, but that was sexy. You should have all written that down.
I wonder if Zapier could even take your lead when it comes in and then convert it to your spreadsheet. Just throwing that out there for people who are like, I don't want to manually input. You might be able to automate it. You might be able to automate it.
Yeah. But obviously our ROI is so important. So it's really good to know that it's going to come from a lot of different places, not just from one particular place. But definitely download the sales tracking worksheet because whenever we talk to vendors and we talk about sales, and if they ever say there's something wrong with sales, I always ask, is it the leads or is it the closing rate? And they don't always know those things. So it's really important to know if it's a leads thing, that's a marketing issue. If it's a closing rate, that's a sales issue. So to make sure you understand the difference between those two. So let's talk about some effective marketing strategies that speed up the sales process. So let's talk about the sales funnel. And we've talked about marketing a little bit and kind of transitioned into this, but what role does marketing play into that sales funnel to get that person to sign up? Because so many vendors say, oh, if I can get in front of them, I can talk to them, I can close them. How do they get in front of them?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's being willing to do business where today's couple does business. You know where they like to do business? In text messages and in DMs. We get people who actually fill out the listing on the website, they fill out the form, they say, please don't email me, I don't check my email. What are you doing? Sending them 46,000 follow-up emails. So I think that like looking at all this marketing you're doing, if your only funnel is to drive them directly to a website and to a form and not give them the opportunity to have conversations with you in different places, we convert about 40% of new memberships from Instagram DMs because they're there talking. It's like texting, but like it gives that opportunity. So I think looking at the marketing you're doing, it's so important to do the things you're doing, but focus on calls to action and calls to action that allow them to connect with you where they want to talk to you. I don't answer my phone. It's the worst. Text me. My mom is trained. Don't call me. Text me. My mother, I don't answer the phone. So I think it's important for you to look at all of this marketing you're doing and making sure that you're meeting them where they're at and they want to talk to you. So that will speed up the sales process. If you say like, oh, DM us for packages, right? Get that stuff moving in different ways.
Yeah, for us, I feel like marketing to like closing the, like from marketing in the sales process is basically like taking it from dating to being married. It is the dating portion of the sales funnel process. And so you're not going to just get married. You have to like warm the lead up. And so your marketing is your messaging. It's your imagery that you're sharing. It's the things that you say on your stories or what's in your highlights. Hello, everybody needs to go through those, myself included. It's, you know, the words on your captions as well as on your website. That way, making sure that they're reflective of one another. And then also making sure that those words and language is also representative of how you're going to speak to them on that sales call. If they get on the call with you and it's a completely different verbiage than what you've used in your marketing, they're going to be so caught off guard. There's going to be a disconnect there and a lost trust. So my quick answer is that it's basically like the dating portion of closing the sale.
Adding on to verbiage, that is something with marketing that I feel like we see a lot with vendors is I can a lot of times take the same sentences or even the about us about one vendor and it applies to every single vendor. So really speaking to your ideal client, I love when I see on websites, when I visit websites, when people tell me like, hey, if this, then we should work together. Or if this, then we shouldn't work together. Because I feel like right away it really speaks to people to be like, yes, this is my person, this is who I want to work with. Also about talking to people multiple different ways. I always tell people to, if on your form, again, if people fill out your form, your inquiry form, ask for their Instagram. Because if they give it to you, then they're probably okay with you reaching out to them. There are so many times, you know, we always talk about getting ghosted in emails. Well, sometimes they're not ready to actually have a conversation with you. But if they fill out your inquiry form, you send them your information, you follow up, you haven't heard back, shoot them a quick DM. Be like, hey, Jesse, did you get my message I sent over to you? And they may be like, oh yeah, I'm really busy right now, or I have this, or I have that. But they feel much more comfortable of kind of spouting something off to you versus composing an email. So follow them on Instagram if they give you their Instagram. And it's even a great way just to, if they follow you, or if you follow them, hopefully they follow you back. But communicate there even if they didn't communicate there with you initially, because there's a good chance you can get a reply in that way. What can wedding pros change in their marketing process to speed up the sales process, to get there quicker? What are some things maybe they can put on their website that they don't have on there now?
Yeah, I mean, if you're using an online appointment booker, put the link everywhere. If you're somebody who's like, I need more appointments, I need things to move, this doesn't apply to the luxury markets. If you're luxury, ignore me right now. Shauna lives in that space, I live in the other spaces, right? So like, but if you're a venue and you do tours and you have multiple salespeople and you have tours, put the tour link everywhere. So think about what's the ultimate goal of the action that you want them to take, and how can you start to call to action that? Things like, in your captions, saying things like, book a tour today, we have tours available on Saturday, you know, or we have appointments open, or whatever that looks like. I think being more clear with telling them what you want them to do. We show so many pretty things, and pretty things are great, but they don't even know what it is. So I think being more clear about showing it, but telling them what it is and how they can have it, thinking from a sales perspective rather than putting up captions. I know some of you in this room do it. You're like, all the love in their hearts. The fuck is that? What does that sell, right? So like thinking about your captions are a tool to tell the story of your business and how they want to work with you.
Yeah, I really love too how we have like two different perspectives because like we can hit on everyone in the room on this. Like kind of similar to what you said though, just having consistent messaging and in your marketing, period. Consistency is so important, and it takes, like research says, at least 7 times for somebody to remember something after they've seen it. So just being really consistent in that messaging is really important. And then this might be meant for another part, but also like if we're talking about moving them through the sales process, getting the information that you need on your contact form is really important too. So like we have a spot on ours that asks for the client's estimated spend. And so that's going to help me to know, like, is this a qualified lead that I can move forward with? Is it someone that I need to funnel off to someone else? I don't want to waste their time. I want to be able to help serve them in the best way possible. And I know that we'll talk about that in a little bit, but it also is applicable here too.
So talking about ideal client a lot, what is the best way to storytelling to identify who your ideal client is?
Yeah, I feel like we've hit on it a lot, but just making sure that you first understand who your ideal client is. I think a lot of us think that we know, but we actually couldn't tell like an actual profile on it. I often have to remind myself to go back through and look at who were my past clients for last year, who did I love the most, who was high revenue, were there qualities about each of these people that I really loved and adored, what are consistent professions that I'm connecting with, finding why are those consistent professions. For a while there we were working with a lot of nurses, and then we were working with a lot of doctors, and we tend to work with people who tend to love other people a lot, and that's kind of representative of who we are. But once you really know who you're actually speaking to, and you really need to know, like, what are their core values? Do they love their family? Are they looking for a really big party that's a lot of fun, or is it really a more intimate event? Like, who are you really speaking to? And then just speak to them. I think that Gen Z specifically, as well as a little bit of millennials too, like, we're just tired of all the perfect. Like, people want authenticity and they want to feel that in your messaging. And so I just think it's really important to identify who you're speaking to and actually speak to them instead of just like throwing spaghetti at the wall.
Absolutely. And if you're someone, I know for the millennials in this room, we grew up on Instagram where everything has to be perfect, right? We have to curate everything. So it's very hard, and me included, to get on social media and not try to like be perfect. I'm like, oh, I have to have my makeup done. I can't do this. That is not necessarily the norm anymore, especially if you're on TikTok. Like, very rarely do you see people perfect. It's very much very authentic and very real. So understand that kind of the way to present yourself. Obviously, you want to present yourself in a professional manner, but it does not have to be perfect. It can sometimes be a turnoff when you are too perfect.
I was just going to say too, like, you can be authentic and still professional too. And so that's, yeah, you totally nailed it.
So something that I feel like some vendors have a hard time with now is trying to get across their personality and get past that perception they have to be perfect, but show who they are. And if it's hard for you to get in front of the camera, definitely use your About Us or your stories to kind of show your personality if it's hard for you to do it on your actual feed. And if it's hard for you to figure out, like, well, I don't know why people like me, go to your reviews and look to see what people consistently say about you in your reviews. Are they saying how comfortable they feel around you, or how funny you make them, or how easy you were to work with? If you have a hard time of coming up why people should hire you, what you do so well, look at your reviews, because you will see the same patterns over and over. Ask your frienders and say, hey, like, why do you like to work with us over other people? I'm trying to put together some About Us. And they can give you some good, authentic feedback so you can really nail and hit in when people come to you about what you do so well. So we've gotten people through marketing to inquire with us. Now, how can we continue to actually get them to get into that sales meeting when they don't reply to us for the first time? So what are some great tips for follow-ups to get to that sales meeting?
Yeah, I hate the term ghosting because I actually think we use it way too much in our industry. I think people are just busy, and we get lazy, and we give up quick, and we don't put the chases on, right? When you put your sales hat on, it's they've knocked on your door. People are like, I don't want to follow up too much. I'm like, shut up. They knocked on your door. They filled out your form. Like, they showed up at your house. Now go get them, right? Because in today's world, we are all just freaking busy. We did a recent podcast episode on the Wedding Sassles about I just spent $16,000. I was a bride planning her wedding, except it was a retaining wall and a patio. My process was insane. It took me 7 months because I didn't have time. I'd reach out, disappear again, reach out again. They'd come quote, I'd disappear. It just wasn't the top of my freaking list. And we're finding that today's couples are taking so much longer to decide. I have a venue I work with in Texas. They just had somebody come back 18 months after the tour and book the venue. 18 months, right? But you know how they continued to book that? Everyone else had stopped emailing them. So I think you've got to look at the first 30 days that a lead comes in, and that is like when they're kind of the hottest, looking for information, and most likely in the research phase. And if after 30 days they haven't responded, they haven't touched any of the things you've done, at that point you can automate it. You can drop them into a funnel that's like just automated emails where you're giving value and you're helping them with the you guys have so much knowledge and expertise, help them with the process. So that's how you stay top of mind, but you got to like chase hard in the first 30 days. And you have to be willing to do the work and do the follow-ups and get creative with ways to stay top of mind. Social media is a good way. Maybe they followed you. Maybe that's a whole email follow-up that says, come follow our Instagram. And then you're good on Instagram, you're active, they're seeing you all the time. It's a top of mind philosophy that you are all limiting your sales capability, saying things like, I don't have time to follow up with them that much. I don't have, well, do you want the money? I want the money. So you got to chase a little bit harder and do more. So if you guarantee yourself one thing after today, can you add 1 or 2 more email follow-ups? Like 1 or 2 more? You would be shocked how much the conversion goes up with just a few more touches.
I just have to add that the client gave themselves an 18-month rule, and that's hilarious.
Yeah, literally 18 months it took them to make a decision. And so it took me 2 years to build a retaining wall. You know why? Because the first quote came in at $12,000 and I crapped myself. And I was like, well, I got to save up for that. I thought it'd be like 4. But I was like, 12, I got to start saving. So sometimes they're researching, they find out what we charge, they have a heart attack and go into, I got to save my money before I can do this and make that decision. So if you don't stay top of mind with them, you're losing that opportunity to book them. And most people in this room literally don't follow up more than 3 times. I can guarantee it. I have data to show it. I filled out about 150 forms for vendors across the country. 3 is the magic number. So what if you're the one who does 4 or 5? What can you do that little something extra?
I feel like, do you guys have those emails that will tell you like, hey, you're gonna have a great day, like those positive things. You need to start a service where you like give that sales, like you can go out there and sell this thing. You need to do that.
You can do it.
Follow up an email again. All right, what are some ways for pre-selling and creating value? I know that Shannon, you have one particular sales aspect in how you approach sales. What's a way to create value where maybe you're not doing kind of a hard sell and you're really kind of easing into it?
Yeah, I'm aggressive. I would be what's considered aggressive sales, just because I chase and we don't let people go. So when I worked at the venue 10 years ago, we had a 17-point touch before we closed the lead. 17 times we touched that lead. Email, phone call, we weren't texting then, email, whatever. 17 times we touched them. It sounds crazy, right? Except we were giving them so much value of what we were sending them. So we would give them the top 15 questions to ask when you tour a venue. Guess what all those 15 questions did? It made my venue look great, and all my competitors couldn't answer the questions. But I was giving them tools, resources, helpful knowledge and tips for, if you're a florist, you're worth every penny. It's so expensive for flowers, right? So you have to teach them, why does it cost what it costs? What should I expect? And so I think that process isn't just email after email saying book a call, 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 and that's the mistake. When there aren't resources shared and ways to stay on top of mind and things like that, one of the best performing emails I had at the hotel I worked at, the subject line said, "We believe." I one day was like, screw it. These people are not responding. I got nothing to lose. The email said, we believe that your wedding isn't a 4-hour event, it's a 3-day party. We believe when you get married at our family-owned property, you become part of the family. It was sharing our values and whatever. I had 150 leads that had never responded, 45 replied. I didn't ask for anything. No book an appointment, no book a tour. I was like, this is what we believe. What do you believe about your wedding was my question. And they all started responding. So I think it's about thinking creating value and teaching them we're experts in this and they don't know what they're talking about. So how can you think outside the box of just trying to attack the sale and pet and love them through the journey?
Oh, I got chills thinking about that. That's amazing. Now, I'm guessing you probably don't send 17 sales emails. So tell us your approach of how
Well, I
how
think
you
our
approach your
planners would
clients.
literally murder me because they are the ones who I am corresponding with. So we often aren't even following up with the client. We have the sales call with the client and then it goes back into the planner's hand, which really segues us into the next question that we're going to have. So mine is a very different. Give your planner partners time. Their clients are taking more time to book than ever. So be patient. That's actually, if you're going from direct, your planner is your inquiry source, don't follow up with them 17 times in a week. So it's just but give them the space that they need. Understand. Now, I will say not all planners remember to follow up and tell me when a client goes another direction. So I do have to often still gently follow up and just say, hey, are they still deciding or have they made their decision? Show It is yelling at me. I have 100 pages on my Show It page. And when you have over 100, it says, warning, your site may experience issues. So I literally need to close them out. So that's, why I actually do tell planners that I just need to close out their page if they're not moving forward. So just being actually patient with them and understanding the role that the planner plays in the process.
So you've mentioned that obviously a lot of your clients do come from the planner or from your creative partner. So tell us how that all works of really being able to get referrals mainly from other vendors versus having to rely so much on lead forms and different things.
Yeah, so when we get an inquiry from a planner, they'll often ask, are you available this date? And then we'll tell them yes or no. Sometimes we get more information on the front end and sometimes not, so we just have to ask. So it's important for you to know what information you need in order to serve your client. We create custom proposals for all of our clients. So that means that I don't have pricing that I can just, automatically send off. I can send base pricing, but most of the time, a planner will come in, they'll ask if we're available for a date, and I'll just ask them, absolutely happy to make a custom proposal. Can you share with me? And then I just know the information that I need for my custom proposal, which is the client's name, their date, the venue, what kind of coverage are they looking for? And those are mainly the key things that I'm asking for when that comes in. And then from there, I'll make the custom proposal and I send it over. And then sometimes the planner wants us to hop on a call with the client, and sometimes the client doesn't want to hop on a call. I think that a lot of us have some egos that make us feel like we need to be in control of everything, and that's the number one thing that you have to let go of. If you really trust your planners as a part of your creative process, they are the matchmakers. They do what they do so well because they know us so well. So if you're working with great planners, you can often trust them if the client just wants to move forward with contract. When I'm working with great planners, it's never a problem. I never have to pre-qualify on my own because I have a relationship with them. And I know that I can trust them to pair us with really wonderful people. And then from there, if we do a call, we do a call, and then I let it breathe, and I, have great mindsets of how the call goes. And, if you are feeling a certain way after a call or you feel anxious, that's something that I definitely think, we'll talk a little bit about mindset. You have to shift that. And then I'll hear back from them. When I hear back from them, sometimes it's weeks, sometimes it's a month. I've had a consult sit out there post-consult months, because I will say some clients now are moving a little bit slower, but I just think that it just comes and goes.
And what are some of your best tips for connecting with planners to kind of make yourself known, especially for photographers? There's so many photographers. It's really hard to stand out, and there's so many great photographers. So what are some of your key tips for even getting on a planner's radar?
Yeah, so I think that authenticity is just so important. I can never emphasize this enough. Jordon and I have been doing education for photographers since 2018, and we have been hammering the same thing since then, which doesn't 2018 sound like it was last year? It wasn't. That was 6 years ago. But I think, that might be bad math, whatever. It was at least 6 years ago. Okay. It really feels like yesterday. But authenticity is really important. You can't look at, like, you have to be in it for the right reasons. You have to want to work with planners for the right reasons. Just like if you are on a dating app and you can sniff out a bad weed, like someone comes into your dating app and you're like, oh, no. It's the same thing with the planner. You are dating someone. You are like dating this planner. They are dating you. There is a huge risk in planners referring other creative partners. It takes a long time to build that relationship. And if you're not being authentic, if you are looking at a planner as like a money pot, they're gonna know. And also, like, shame on you, because they're human beings. And so I think that it's really important to look at people look for friendships. That is always look for people who share core values with you. They'll have the same ideal clients as you. You'll be a lot happier working with those clients, instead of being like, oh, this person does this weddings at this venue all the time and they make a lot of money and so I want to work with them. You might not get along with them. And that's not going to be very fun working with them. So my recommendation in simple form is make friendships. And make friendships with people who are at the same level as you, who are growing with you. Those are the people that you're going to build empires with, and support one another. Most of our referral sources come from planners, but I tell you what, the second I get one that comes in from Instagram, because that's where they come if it's not from a planner, I am over the moon elated to be like, let me tell you all of my favorite people that you should look up, oh, you're getting married in this location. I have the perfect person in mind for you. It brings me so much joy to get to return that favor.
A tip that we've picked up, so if you guys didn't know, Marry Me Tampa Bay, we've become a vendor ourselves, and then we do wedding content creation. And with it being a new category, there's a lot of education for everyone in that. But something we've started doing, if we get an inquiry and we ask, have you hired a planner? Have you hired a photographer? If they tell us who that is, we will email that planner and be like, oh, hey, just so you know, planner, one of your clients has inquired to work with us if you want to give them any positive things to say about us, or same thing. So that's a great tip that we've learned, is before you even have a call with them, if you know who their planner is or photographer or venue, email that person to be like, hey, this client inquired with me, I'll keep you posted, but just so you know, because if they do talk, they may say like, oh my gosh, you have to work with them, they're so wonderful, they're so good. So fun little tip there. All right, so let's talk about qualifying leads, because not every lead is going to be a good fit. So how can we initially weed some people out to make sure that we are attracting the best people to come to us?
I think your website has a lot to do with it. I know that sometimes we set it and forget it with our websites. We're doing all these other marketing behaviors. We're killing it on Instagram. We're posting all the time. And yes, Gen Z will come straight through there. But remembering that if you are networking and you meet a venue, or a mom is searching to find you, I think you've got to really start looking at how much is your website functioning for you. It is your store in 2024. It is the storefront that they walk through the door of your homepage, and is it work? Are you taking them on this journey through your site so that you're qualifying them in a lot of ways? My hot topic for this is, can you be more transparent with your pricing, please? Please let people know what it costs. The statistic from all of the research from Wedding Pro, love them or hate them, is that 80% of all couples are considering price before they reach out to the vendor. So if your prices live nowhere, you don't even discuss price of anything, you're losing leads you don't even know you're losing, right? So making sure that when you've done all this work to get them to you, somewhere you need to talk about, my ideal is always to give a range. Our average client spends X to X. I'm not a fan of starting at, because I'm a budgety princess sometimes. Starting at is the only number I remember. So don't give me the lowest number, because then I'm like, why is it so much higher? So giving them an average range, and if you are a more budget-friendly vendor in your category, or low to mid, be super transparent and just put the pricing out there. I would rather just know. There's this hysterical TikTok of this bride who's like, just please tell me your pricing. I'm so embarrassed. I keep reaching out to these vendors, and then they write me back, and I don't want to reply back and be like, I'm too poor to afford you. Right? They're screaming for, she's like, I'm so embarrassed. Please stop making me embarrass myself over and over and over again. But that's how they feel. So I think being more transparent with pricing, ranges, general spend, things like that, is the best way that you can qualify and not waste your time on people that they cannot afford you, no matter what price point you're at.
Yeah, so we're a little unique even in the luxury market because we offer associates. So when we have our website, we do have an associate website, but a lot of our leads for associates do come through our site as well because it's people who want to work with us and they maybe can't afford us, so they want something similar in style. And so we have like a grayed out option on our contact form, and that is basically like we'll ask what is your estimated spend. The grayed out is like what our average pricing kind of is. Actually, I probably need to change your websites. I probably need to update that, but it at least gives them some sort of like, I'm kind of training their mind, like this is about where you should be landing. Again, for us, our leads often come in from planners, and so the planners know. They're the ones pre-qualifying the pricing for us. So we also, if you have that on your contact form, I always love to add a little asterisk here, just if they say NA, I don't know, like some of our highest booking clients are that. They just don't know what it is, so never like disregard a lead if they come in and they say they have no idea what their budget is, so.
Something that I know you've talked about before that I think is a really good tip of how to qualify people, especially if you are a little bit higher budget, is you will talk about things that maybe they may only know if they're kind of within that price category. So do you remember some of the tips that you can kind of share of like, oh, okay, this person does actually have a budget that would be able to afford me?
So because we create custom proposals, I don't send pricing right off the bat when they inquire with us. They inquire with us. I set up a time I know from the contact form if they're anywhere in the realm. Sometimes if they say, I don't know, I just take them through the journey with us because again, we are a little unique. If they're under, I'm not wasting their time. I can always introduce them to our associate team. So let's say a lead comes in and they don't even put their pricing down. They put undetermined. We send a pre-call questionnaire, and they have to fill out that questionnaire prior to getting on to officially booking the call with us. And on that questionnaire, I ask them questions that's going to tell me a lot about who they are and their core values. So I ask, what fuels you up professionally and personally? Do you have an interior designer that you would like for us to work with, when it comes to your wedding prints? Just things like that kind of things that are core values to us that might be core values to our clients, because again, we've worked with our clients, we know a lot of their core values, and so just kind of getting creative about like things that you can maybe put on your form that can tell you.
I love listening to luxury fancy people. Don't you? I'm like, my venue was not that. My catering was not that. I'm like, if I ever asked that kind of question, they'd be like, "Go F yourself, Shannon."
It's okay.
But I love it.
Either.
Like, I love the different. Even when we were practicing for this panel, I was like, you say things I don't know anything about because I don't live in the luxury space, right? And so, but I know this is where a lot of companies want to strive to get towards. And so learning, if you're not in this space right now, still listen to what Shauna is saying, because if you strive to be in that space with your business, you have to learn things like this. I interviewed at the Four Seasons in Orlando before they opened, and I interviewed for the sales job, and they were like, do you have any questions at the end? I was like, yeah, are you wearing pantyhose because you have to? Or because, and she looked at me, and I was like, I don't want to wear pantyhose to work. So is this required? And she looked at me, and I was like, I'm not really luxury people. Like, you're not my people. Like, I thank you so much. It's been such a joy to learn about this position, but I was like, they're asking questions that I weeded myself out of a job. That I'm like, I don't know what shoes or brands are, but like you need to know that stuff if you're gonna work in the luxury space. You need to understand that. So it's also okay to like live in this space you are in and qualify for the client that you want to be in front of. But I love it.
And I want to add too, like, I am not my client. I wish I was. I want to be their friend. Take me to St. Bart's. That's fine. But yeah, it was an educated decision to like learn about them and like high net worth clients and how are they spending their money and just really delving into the psyche of it. So
very nice. So this is something that I feel like is just not talked about enough when it comes to sales, is about your money mindset, because a lot of us are not the clients that we work with. A lot of us are like, I would never spend that on my wedding. But you don't have to be. So tell us a little bit more about how you can be more in the mindset to receive money and to be positive about asking for those big numbers.
You guys, I really love mindset. I'm gonna get a little woo on you, but that's okay. Mindset is serious, like, you know how people say like, oh, make sure that when you say your price point, you say it confidently. That's because we all have like energy that we give out, whether you want to believe it or not. There's actually on what is it? The School of Money. It's Lewis Howe's podcast that he has. He had a brain surgeon, neurosurgeon, who's insanely smart guy on his podcast. And they were actually talking about like the science behind our energy. And did you know that if you're within 15 feet of someone, your heart puts off different energy if you have positive energy within you, and our hearts can read each other's energy. If you've ever been in a networking scenario, you can like be near someone, you can just like tell like, oh, I really like, hey, how are you? Because you can read, our bodies actually physically respond to each other's energy. There is actual science behind it. And the way that we think about money really affects the way that we're going to talk about money. And it's going to affect the way that we sell or serve our clients with their money. One of my favorite things to remind myself and anyone who I mentor when it comes to pricing is I am not their financial advisor. I'm not their financial advisor. That is a crap ton of money to me, but I am not responsible for their finances, and all my job is to serve them with what that cost is. I am not your financial advisor, and I have to remind myself that sometimes if I'm sending out like what would be my biggest proposal I've ever sent to date, and I'll look at my business partner and husband Jordon, I'll be like, oh crap, and I'm like, I just remind myself, I'm like, what's expensive to me might not be expensive to them. And that doesn't mean that I'm not worth it. And so what I love to remind people is like, we all have money mindset. We all have mindsets around money. If you reflect back to how you grew up, did your parents tell you in the grocery store, don't touch that? Or, you know, I have a talk that I do on money mindset where I talk about how I didn't think I had a money mindset issue, and then I remembered like growing up and the water turning off in our house because my dad hadn't paid the bill. Or maybe you grew up really wealthy and like money's just of no thing to you. We all have mindsets around money, and it's really important for us to understand what those mindsets are so we can then shift them to what they need to be. Maybe we're a little too frivolous with money and we need to maybe pull it back and not, you know, just assume that X, Y, Z. I think it's really important for us to understand how we think about money, what our relationship with money is, and then remove the stigmas from it. Money is made every day. I like have a mantra I tell myself, like money is infinite and it is abundantly flowing to me, and it changes the way that I serve my clients, and it changes the way that I think about money, it changes the way that I utilize my own money, and I just think it's really important. So
I love that, because I know there's so much fear around money for a lot of people, so to kind of flip that and make it is infinite. Absolutely. So before we finish up, I want to talk about the sales call, because that's something that I feel like a lot of people in the room feel like they do well, but what are some ways they can do that a little bit better? So what are some key elements of a successful sales call? What are some things that you highlight of like, oh wow, that went really well, or these are things that I want to make sure I do really well on?
Well, yeah, so doing the pre-qual, is that what you're talking about? Our questionnaire that we send out prior to. I know that I'm going to ask our clients like the same 5 questions on every single call. Also, even in the luxury space, sales calls are rinse, wash, and repeat, like all over and over. It's the same thing. All of my sales calls are super repetitive in the sense of not what, like the conversation's always unique, but the things that I'm asking are always the same, because I always need the same information to know how I can best serve that client. Sorry to any of our planners who sit on the calls and have to hear me ask the same questions 15 times. But thank you for enduring with me. But they're really good questions, and that's why I ask them. So the questions that I am going to ask our clients are very open-ended, like, why do you think you need a wedding photographer? That's really uncomfortable to answer on the fly. So I ask them on the questionnaire prior to getting on the call, and then I ask them again in person. And then I think most importantly is asking them the why questions after. A lot of people will just like ask the question, I'll be like, oh wow, that's really, really interesting. Is there a reason why that's important to you? That's where you're gonna really get into like the nitty gritty. Like if a bride says that she wants to utilize hydrangeas for her wedding, and you're like, oh wow, it could just be because it's pretty to the bride, but maybe like her grandmother always had them sitting on the table when they were growing up, and now you're able to delve deeper and really make a really authentic connection with them. So I think that, you know, setting the call up before the call happens. And then I also really, really think it's important. I am a former teacher, so like setting an agenda at the beginning of the call, taking the lead, and letting the client know what to expect. So it's like, okay guys, so now that we have everybody on here, I'm gonna go ahead and get us started. So first I'm gonna go ahead and go over a few logistic things, just make sure that my information over here is correct. I have your date is this, your names are this and this. You're getting married here, yes, 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 I'm getting immediate yeses. And then, you know, from there, I'm going to go ahead and ask you guys a few quick questions. Then after that, I'll go ahead and explain a little bit about our process and what it looks like to work together, and then we can go ahead and wrap up with questions. AKA, I am in charge, and you can ask questions at the end. They don't want to be in charge. Occasionally, I will get a client who will like try to take charge on the call, and I can usually tell them like, oh, they're probably not going to book us because they're not going to want to let us guide them through the journey.
Ooh, that's so good. I mean, I think I fully believe in that too. It's understanding that sales calls are systematic, right? And so that sounded so good because she said it 46,552 times, right? I could right now tour this venue like I work here and take you on the tour because I did 50 tours a month of venues every month, and I would say the same word on the same step around the same corner. The jokes got real old after 5 years, right? But I think that it's understanding that, like, when you set it up for success, you show control, you watch them relax. They go from, she's trying to sell me something, into like, oh, she's gonna tell me what this looks like. So I think setting that up, and my other like big sexy, because we're wrapping up, is, can you please freaking ask for the sale? You get through the whole call, you set it up, you ask the questions, you get all the information. We get to the end, and it's like, okay, so I'll send you the proposal. What? You've done all the work. It's time to ask. The sissiest, saddest, non-sales way that you can ask for the sale at the end of an appointment is one question, and it's, what do you think we should do next? You're putting the ball in their court. That's for people who are like, I hate sales. What do you think we should do next? They'll tell you. Oh, I think we should book the date. Or, well, I might have to talk to my mom. I have another appointment. Like, they'll guide you through where their mentality is. I mean, of course, I just want you to direct ask for the sale. But most of you don't do it at all. So we'll start soft today all the way through. So I think it's just realizing that that's the best thing I learned from sales training, was that every appointment followed the exact same path. I created a sales sheet, like an appointment sheet, to remind me what questions to ask next, how to do it, how to guide them through. And so the minute you can figure out how to rinse, wash, repeat it, you are bouncing between sales, marketing, operations, whatever. I could immediately put on my sales hat and be like, okay, let's go to sell, because I made it rhythmic. So that would be my biggest takeaway, is figure out, listen to podcasts, learn what a sales call should sound like, and then just get real good at it.
I would like to note that my sales call is also scripted. I started by scripting it out word for word of what I wanted to say. What are our values? What are our benefits? So that is very applicable no matter where you are. You have to know what you are going to say, so that way you can say it confidently. People sense fear. They can smell it.
Especially the Gen Z, right? Wrapping up here, in terms of some key takeaways, what are kind of the big things that you want people, when they leave today, to remember about sales?
Oh, mine is that mindset's just the most important thing. You're serving, not selling. If you feel weird about sales and you're like, well, I don't like selling, it makes me feel nervous, that's a you issue. So go ahead and figure out why you feel that way. There is a book, and I have to curse to say it, I'm just sorry. It is Get Rich Lucky Bitch, and it is a really, really good book, especially for women who maybe feel uncomfortable with selling. 10 out of 10 recommend. Also the audiobook, she's Australian, so it's fun to listen to her talk.
Yeah, I think it's just, remember that sales is necessary for you to get to do the fun things you love to do. If you're the best DJ and you love playing music and creating memories and photographing things and planning epic, beautiful events that people walk into, you don't get to do any of that unless you learn how to sell. And if you can't sell, figure out how to make enough money to hire somebody who's a beast and can sell for your company. It's the best investment you could possibly make.
Awesome. Well, if you guys want to request the slides, we have a QR code up here so you can download the slides. Otherwise, Shauna is going to be speaking a little bit later today in a breakout session, so you can learn more about that. And just come up to any speakers that you meet today or that you hear. If you have questions for them, ask them. Because I had a little comment with Shannon in the corner, and she gave so many tidbits to someone. So just ask us, because we can tell you so much more stuff that we didn't even scratch the surface with up here.